there were 37 of us, Chewy and myself included, Pramila, who you heard from, who voted against giving Netanyahu a blank check with offensive weapons. And that was, and I think Drew will agree with it, that was one of the hardest votes to cast in Congress because it was a vote of conscience, it was a vote of principle, but we believe that you can't just give a blank check to Netanyahu, who has systematically not shown any interest in an end to the war and release of the hostages, and has frankly defied both the president and Blinken at every step towards that. But in my couple minutes, I just want to talk about the way forward beyond the end of this conflict. The original sin, in my view, was if you go back to 1917 in the Balfour Declaration, and the British, who of course, given my grandfather, Amarnath Vidyalankar, around then was pushing for decolonization in India and spent 4 years in jail against the British. The British had basically colonized post-World War I the Middle East. I mean, it was part of the Ottoman Empire, and then the British basically engaged in a colonial project in Palestine. I mean, that's just factual history. They had colonization in Ireland, colonization in India, and they had the colony of Palestine. The Balfour Declaration's fundamental flaw was, while they recognized Jewish self-determination, they said that the people in Palestine had civil rights and religious rights, but no political rights. No political rights in 1917. And that set the stage for the total de-enfranchisement of the Palestinian people. And until we recognize that there has to be, just like there is the right for Jewish self-determination and the right for Israel, there has to be Palestinian self-determination for the right to Palestine, we're never going to have peace in the Middle East. And that's why I believe that we need to, as the United States, recognize the state of Palestine, like 143 other countries have, and have the Harris administration, President Harris, take a position that the United States should be the 144th country to recognize Palestine. Now, just so you know the laws in Congress that have to be changed, we passed a law in 1990 that if the United Nations recognizes Palestine, the United States cannot fund the United Nations. That is the law in the books currently. So at the very least, we should be calling for the repeal of that atrocious law that says that the United Nations can't recognize the state of Palestine. But when you look at the history, and then you look at 1936 to 1939, and the reason I'm going over some of this is because I think until you understand, until we educate the American public of the history, we're not going to get past the problem. 36 to 39, when the Palestinian movement tried to have self-determination for the Palestinian people, like you had in Egypt, like you had in Jordan, all, by the way, were British colonies. I mean, you had Britain colonized basically Egypt, Jordan, all of the Middle East. The British violently suppressed that. It was one of the most violent movements against the Palestinian people in the 1930s. And so we frankly, Britain should be one of the first countries, given the guilt they should have of their role in the Middle East, to be recognizing a Palestinian state. But I think it is going to be American leadership. And what I am pushing for with the administration and with progressives is for the administration, the future next administration, to be very clear, to stop any of the offensive weapons to Netanyahu until we have a ceasefire and release of the hostages, to have a recognition of a Palestinian state, and for then the United States to work towards, as an honest broker, to have two states and a just foreign policy. But I admire all of you for what you're doing, Rania and others, for helping move us in the right direction. The hopeful sign is that, you know, there were 37 of us in Congress. That movement is growing. The younger generation gets it, and we will work towards getting peace in the Middle East. Thank you.